And of course, next week we'll do some revision for the finals. Okay, so this is recorded. Um, Let me just scroll through the attendance. Okay, now we are going to go to the presentation itself. Now, the last theory for our course is called Critical Disability Studies. It's actually literary criticism of disability and disabled people in literature. Okay, so it comes from and originates from studies on disability, or what they are using right now, disability studies. So this is a new study offered in the West, yeah? A new degree offered in the West. So the main aim of CDS, or Critical Disability Studies, is to deconstruct ideas about disability and to explore how they have come to dominate our approaches to the subject, and how the ideologies that surround disability have been constructed. So the main aim of Critical Disability Studies is to deconstruct ideas about disability. Now, why do we have to deconstruct ideas about disability? Because proponents of critical discourse, critical disability studies, say that disability itself is social construct. Okay, it is constructed by people, so it can be deconstructed. Now, they are not ignoring that disability, like deafness, blindness, mental problems, do exist. Okay, but they are more focused on how society treats disabled people. So CDS seeks to deconstruct the binary distinctions that it claims are used to create differences and hierarchies and obscure connections between disabled and non-disabled people. So CDS seeks to deconstruct the binary distinction. When we talk about the binary distinction about disability, we are talking about ability, able bodies versus disabled bodies. Okay, so able versus disabled, and of course able is positive and disabled is negative. So it does not, in our society we find people who discriminate disabled people, yeah, and this is what the study want to deconstruct or destroy, the discrimination surrounding disabled people. It claims this binary distinction that it claims are used to create differences. These binary distinctions are used to create differences, hierarchies. Able body are better than disabled bodies, and then obscure connection. They want to make the connection between disabled and able bodies obscure or unclear. Okay, so how do they do this? Okay, in a variety of ways. You will find out in the next few slides. So the theory relates to a specific group, disabled people, who make up 50% of the world population. The theory appeared in the late 20th century from the success gained by the disability movement. Seminal work are obtained from works by Irving Goffman and Michael Foucault, and the flourishing of other identity-based approaches with emphasis on rights. Okay, feminism, for example, tries to deconstruct male and female, male versus female. It wants to say that female is as good as male. Okay, so race studies, like in Orientalism and postcolonialism, try to deconstruct the idea that white is versus non-white. Okay, so they want to say that non-white is as good as white people or the same. So it comes at this age, because of other identity-based approaches and the emphasis on rights in these approaches. So starting from 1960s, disabled activists argued that they were a group and disabled people were denied rights. For example, in 1977, around 150 people with a range of impairments argued that they were denied rights and took over a floor of a federal building in San Francisco for 26 days to protest against the government's failure to implement Section 504 of the 1973 Rehabilitation Act, which is America's first disability civil rights law. Okay, so in the 1960s, disabled activists became very, what do you call that, powerful, and they managed to get together and fight for their rights. In 1977, they even have a protest. They took over a floor, they conquered a floor for a federal building in San Francisco for almost a month, yeah, to protest. And then the leader, Ed Roberts, also called disabled people one of the largest minority groups in the nation, citing their shared identity. This contributed to a list of legislative victories, particularly the landmark Americans with Disabilities Act of 1990. So they have an act. Nowadays, you can see that many buildings have to have ramps, for to allow disabled people to have access to the buildings. This is one of the what do you call that? Um, one of the effect of the Disability Act. One of the results. So the influential scholars, like all the theories that we have studied, it has an influential scholar or scholars. Yeah, and in disability studies, we have Irving Goffman, who wrote Stigma in 1963. He analyzed social interactions among people, including those with abominations of the body who differed from the expected norm. Okay, so abominations of the body. Abomination being something something abnormal with the body. Yeah. So if they have an abnormality that you can see, yeah, then they are disabled. So when he discusses passing and other strategies used by stigmatized people who desire acceptance, stigmatized is to be discriminated, to be ostracized. Yeah? Goffman pointed out that the significance of disability is socially formed and can vary by time and place. So some people, because disabled people are stigmatized in society, they kind of like they pass themselves as being able. For example, a person who is blind in one eye only, okay, was born to be blind in one eye. Yeah? Sometimes he would like to he would tell others that that he's not blind, or maybe he just keep quiet about his blindness. Okay. For example, another example of passing is you see the pirates when they wear an eye patch, right? Okay, eye patches actually signify that you are blind in one eye. You cannot see in one eye. So this is another type of passing, or if you want to call it that. So they want to pass as able people, and disabled people do this because they are being if they reveal that they are disabled, then they'll be stigmatized, they'll be ostracized and discriminated and so on. So he pointed out that stigmatized people can internalize instead of oppose societal standards by which they are deemed inferior. So they feel, most people, they need to pass, they need to tell people that they are like other people because they don't want to be stigmatized, and because they feel inferior to others, so they cannot open up about their condition. Um, so another person who is called Michael Foucault is a very famous theorist in the world of philosophy, and he wrote the history of sexuality. Now, in this book, he stated that by the 19th century, bodies seen as problems were sequestered, controlled, diagnosed, and actually otherwise socially managed. So in the 19th centuries, mad people were put in the asylum. So madness is also a disability, and it shows how the government at that time felt that they have to control mad people, that they needed to put mad people in asylums, in a place separate from other people, yeah? Because They viewed it as a disability. Foucault's insight into madness, docile bodies, and clinical gaze proved fertile grounds for later disability scholars. So, what disability critics do in disability studies, it approaches disability as a social and political phenomenon. They are saying that disability is not just a physical impairment, okay, physical problem, but social problem because of how society treat disabled people. It points out that since disability cannot be viewed, it is more than just a medical problem, it's located in a person's body. In other words, they are saying that it is socially constructed. So sometimes disability can be viewed, and you see somebody who is blind, clearly that person cannot see. But not all disabilities can actually be viewed. Some have mental problems, you cannot see, you cannot see that a person has mental problems. Or deafness, for example, they look normal. Maybe a deaf person, because he wants to pass, he will read, okay, other people. So not all the disability can be viewed. So people are still afraid to reveal themselves because they don't want to be discriminated. Huh? The medical model imbues disability with negative connotations through stigmatizing disabled people as damaged, inferior, and in need of rehabilitation or a cure. So medical model imbues disability, or maybe put into disability, or imply that disability is some a negative condition. Yeah, because uh, you know because they are stigmatized, as damaged, inferior, in need of rehabilitation. Okay, disability theories point out that disability is produced as much by cultural and environmental factors as by bodily conditions. This emphasis on social constructions are similar to those supported by post-structuralist feminism. Post-structuralist feminism also say that there is no distinction between men and women. They are the same. They have biological differences, but that is like looking at two sets of dogs. One is a German Shepherd. Another is a Chihuahua. Okay, they look different, but they are both dogs. There's nothing that differentiates between German Shepherd and Chihuahua. Both are dogs. So um, they are saying the people who propagate this, or who believe in this disability movement, they are saying that people are disabled because they have abnormal bodies, slightly different from other people, and sometimes they don't even have uh, physical impairment, but they have something is quite not normal in their inside. Okay, but that doesn't mean that they should be treated differently from able-bodied people. So, disability as a social construct. In their fight for equal rights and activism, the disabled, disempowered groups have pressed attention away from the material bodies to unjust ways society treats them. In claiming disability, Simi Linton wrote a manifesto on the benefits of using the social model. First, it allows people to find a group identity despite their many differences. So, Simi Linton, a theorist on disability, and she is also a disabled person. She says that if you have a disability movement, a group, fighting for these people who are disabled, who are themselves disabled, they would have uh, group identity. Even though there are many types of disability. So it does this by refusing medicalization of disability, Linton writes, and arguing that it is the social and political circumstances that have forged us as a group. It presented disabled people as holders of rights. It allowed them to achieve victories at court for better access, inclusion, and protections from discrimination. Okay, so these are the fights that they have achieved in court. So other studies such as Sharon Snyder and David Mitchell advocated for a cultural model of disability that explores disabled people, bodies interacting with societies around them. Okay, so that's another. It has something to do with the culture model, how our culture can be changed to suit disabled people. Toby Sieber's theory of complex embodiment position disability as a product of both the environment and bodily factors, such as chronic pain, secondary health effects, and aging. Tobin Siebers also said that people who have chronic pain, like if you have osteoarthritis, sakit sendi, yeah, and secondary health effects like diabetes, for example, or high blood pressure, okay, and aging, and you get old, all of these conditions actually produce disability, because for aging people they cannot climb stairs, because they are old, they cannot see clearly, for example, because they're old. So he's basically saying that able people can be disabled too. We always think that disability is someone who uses a wheelchair, who cannot see clearly, who is deaf. Okay, now Tobin Siebert says that even if you have chronic pain, like osteoarthritis, sakit sendi, or you have diabetes, you are all disabled. So disability is actually a very inclusive concept. Both able people and disabled people, people with OKU card, can actually be put in one group. Okay, so there are no real distinction between able people and disabled people. In Malaysia nowadays, in many countries, they have a special. If you are OKU, you get a special card, okay, which shows that you can go to any hospital and get free medical treatment. Okay, now it's not easy to get this card. You have to prove that you are really disabled. Okay, but nowadays you find many people who are really disabled because they are old. They cannot walk. Okay, they have problem diabetes and so on. But they do not have this OKU card because they're not included as this OKU. Okay, so this is what Tobin Siebert want to deconstruct the idea that even able people can be disabled by their diseases, by their age, and so on. So what these critics, oh sorry, okay, this kind what these critics are calling for is for the field and policymakers to embrace an understanding of disability that includes biological as well as cultural aspects. The American Disability Act, ADA, of 1990. It defines disability as not just a physical or mental impairment that substantially limits one or more major life activities or record of such impairment. So it defines disability as not just a physical and mental impairment. Impairment means to be less than normal, to be disabled. So it is more than that. Uh, and United Nations Conventions on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities say that disability results from the interaction between persons with impairments and attitudinal and environmental barriers that hinders their full and active participation in society on an equal basis with others. So it's more than according to United Nations, it's more than an impairment. It's also the attitudinal and environmental barriers that hinders their full and active participation in society. So this disability has something to do with how society also discriminates against disabled people. This is a problem according to United Nations, and it results in disability. So what we have to do for disabled people, we have to make their lives able. So we have to create jams, for example. We have to create audio libraries, so that they have similar access to everything that is available for able people. Limitations of CDS. Like other theories, it has its own limitations. Number one, because of the stigma surrounding disability, cultures around the world often equate disability with being broken and disqualified. Some people who are disabled are uncomfortable with accepting the disabled label. For example, some deaf people, sometimes they use sign language and they view themselves as being members of a proud linguistic minority and not disabled in any way. Some disabled people are uncomfortable with the label disabled, so they view themselves as being a special group. Um, some little people in the dwarf community, they say that they are not disabled, so they are unhappy for people to call them as disabled. They're only little people. So number two, CDS, like the social model, contains a strong normative dimension that implies what is wrong and what is right as regard to social arrangements. But it is not concerned with the clear normative approach to lived, embodied, and visceral experiences of having an impairment. So CDS is also, critiquing how society it treats disabled people, but they are not concerned with how disabled people live every day. Yeah, how what are the problems that they encounter every day that has to do with their disability. Okay, so this is the problem with CDS. They don't discuss about the problems of having a disability. They discuss about how society treats disabled people. So CDS fails to account for the economic basis of disability. The disadvantage related to disability is to a great extent a matter of economic injustice. And before this injustice can be corrected, we have to be able to identify those individuals and social groups that have been disadvantaged by social arrangements. There is a need to identify numerous categories of this being disadvantaged. For example, a person who is dyslexic could easily find a job than someone who is blind. Okay, so CDS also fails to account for the economic basis of disability because there is clearly disability is clearly related to economy. Like for example, how much a person can earn. Is it true that if um, someone who is disabled is he paid less than able people? So CDS does not discuss this. Does not um, discuss how certain disabled people are paid less than others, than normal people. So even amongst disabled people, there are highly successful disabled people and less successful than less successful disabled people. So the limitation is that they do not discuss about economic basis of disability. So CDS in literature, how it is implemented in literature, the study of literature. One work that implements this is through a study by Claire Lawrence, who wrote Is Lenny a Monster? A Reconsideration of John Steinbeck's Of Mice and Men in the 21st Century Inclusive Classroom Context. So The Mice and Men is a book, it's a novel by John Steinbeck, and it's about one character who is actually handicapped or disabled, okay, and his friend who is able. So they keep moving from place to place because of Lenny, the disabled person, who had done something, who had great strength. Yeah, and he is less than normal. He's a disabled person, mentally disabled. So in the story, Lenny actually, towards the end of the book, he actually killed a woman, okay, a woman who is seeking attention actually from many men, and the woman fails to get the attention because she is already married. So the man ran away from her because her husband is their boss. So the woman is embraced by Lenny, okay, and somehow Lenny does not manage to control his strength and he kills the woman by crushing her body. So it ends with Lenny's death because they want to hunt the people in the novel they accuse Lenny of killing the woman intentionally. So they shot him. Okay, so he died. So Lenny, according to the study, is portrayed by Steinbeck as if he is unhuman, othered from other characters in the book, and demonized as animal-like that merit challenge if they are to be encountered in the modern classroom. Okay, so the study asks if Lenny is a monster. What does the mean? that mean for pupils' understanding of autism and intellectual disability both inside and outside of classroom. Okay, so this is how the writer shows that Lenny has been discriminated by society because they refuse to see him as a person. Even the writer John Steinbeck, he does not portray Lenny as a person with autism because maybe perhaps autism wasn't really that known at that time. It was known, but it wasn't really described. It wasn't really known throughout America. Maybe um, certain doctors knew about autism, but not others. So it also occurred. The novel was written also during the time of the eugenics movement. Eugenics means it's kind of like a movement that cared for um, the next generation by kind of like limiting the reproductive ability of disabled people. Okay, because they want to create a better generation. So this happened when the book was written. So Lenny became a kind of like a monstrous figure, even though the book is a bit sympathetic towards Lenny. So it's showing how society, even the narrator, the novelist, treated Lenny with discrimination. So another book is something that I think you may be more familiar with, Hunchback of Notre Dame by Victor Hugo, who is a French writer, was made into a movie. Quasimodo is the hunchback. Okay, he has a hunchback, so he is disfigured and therefore he is disabled. Um, so the book, the narrator solidly blames Quasimodo's misery on his non-normative body, making such statements as it's certain that the spirit finds in a misshapen form. Yeah, but at other times attribute the fault to the social environment of medieval France instead. So clearly, Quasimodo's disability can be viewed in two ways in the novel. The first selection, in which Quasimodo is selected Pope of Fools for making the ugliest face of the at the Epiphany celebration, show how the social environment of the carnival reads the grotesque in Quasimodo's body. They see his body as being strange and ugly. Yeah? And then the second one is when Quasimodo has just rescued the heroine Esmeralda from execution by the Kingsman. It shows how the altered social environment interprets his body as sublime. You know, because of his act of saving somebody, he becomes kind of like a hero figure. So it shows how society can change perceptions about disabled people simply by judging him by how he looks. That can mean something negative for disabled people, but when disabled people do something good, okay, or sacrifice themselves, then they become suddenly good to society. Okay, so I'm sorry again. Yeah, so that is the end. Yeah, you can see that the rest of the website, okay, which discusses this in the 19th century disability organization. Yeah. So these are the works, huh? And I put this on Itaklim. So anyone here wants to ask about disability studies, critical disability studies? Anyone has any question? Um, I think I will go through this. Uh, I forgot if I have done this or not. Yeah, I just go through. Anyone here? Um, Certainly, I think you would have met a disabled person, right, in your entire life. Okay, so I think that, and also, if you talk about Down syndrome, autistic people, they're all disabled people, mentally, um, people with mental problems are also disabled. Schizophrenia, um, all sorts of disability. And what I think most people would feel is that you would feel um, that these people are a problem to our society, right? Yeah, because they require attention. They cannot do anything constructive. They cannot work. Um, if you have Down syndrome, sometimes we view them as people who cannot work. problems. They can be disruptive. Okay, so they are quite stigmatized in our society compared to able people. So I know this study is about claiming rights for them, yeah, for these disabled people. And I myself, I find sometimes I am bothered by disabled people because they can act really unconventionally. Okay, so they act strange. So yeah, I think I do have that feeling. Yeah, but I try not to be. I try to be what do you call that? Understanding, but sometimes it's difficult. Yeah, but try to be understanding, right?
Yeah, no.
Especially yes, Afia, do you have any question?
Yeah, actually, my little sister and my little brother is autistic and dyslexic.
Oh, I see. Okay.
So, so yeah, coming from our family point of view, others people that don't have enough awareness of this
Mm-hmm.
definitely give us a little bit um, different treatment whenever they saw us. So it's a bit challenging, yes,
Yeah, your
to,
brother
to
is
understand.
dyslexic.
Yes, that dyslexic.
Oh, dyslexic. Okay. Yeah, there is. I also know that there is a place in yeah, Titi Wangsa, right? That,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah.
He went there to help with the learning difficulties.
Yeah. So we do have that kind of problem. Yeah. Then people tend to discriminate. Yeah, against.
Yeah,
But
even among family members itself.
mm, so it's hard to break away from that. I remember when I was young, also when I was a child, I used to have helpers orang gaji. Of
Mm.
her helpers actually had a cerebral palsy, but at that time I didn't know what. I was a child, so I didn't know what cerebral palsy was. And she spoke to me, but it wasn't. Whenever she spoke to me, it wasn't really clear about what she wanted to say. But other people apparently can understand her. People are close to her. So yeah, but she was nice. Yeah, but so it is a challenging thing when you have to bring up or you live with a person who has disability, because not everybody is equally understanding.
Even as the siblings, the parents, we as the close family also need to really understand what they want to express, especially my little sister with autism. It's really hard to understand her, so it
Yeah.
is definitely challenging.
Yes, it is challenging, but you have to have a lot of patience and as, that as
Yes.
well, because they do things like if you have autism, some of them will throw tantrums, right? If they don't get
Yeah,
their
every
way.
day.
Yeah, so it is a problem, but it's not their fault. It's something that is biologically programmed in their
But yeah,
mind.
our society nowadays have more awareness on this issue, so it's easier to give them knowledge on what is happening
Uh,
compared to um apa, back then, right?
yeah,
So nowadays there's lots of NGOs and programs.
yeah. So yes, so so it's easier to have knowledge. And people like Zarina Zainuddin, for example, the actress, she has two
Yeah, yeah,
autistic sons, right?
yeah,
So she shows on Instagram how her autistic son behaves, how they behave there too. She, it must be very hard for her. You see
yeah.
the movie Rain Man, for us, for example. It's another movie that shows an autistic man, and it's really difficult because they can burn down houses, because they don't do
They
it
don't know
intentionally.
danger.
Yeah, so it's difficult. Um, so it is, it's also how we um, react as a society against. How we react to disabled people that can, I think, can improve their lives also. If we react compassionately, then maybe perhaps they can have a quality of life After all, God, um, for people with madness, for example, or disability, they are special people in Islam. They will go to heaven, right? So we have to bear that in mind that these people will go to heaven, and we do not know whether we will go end up in heaven straight away. Okay, so I know Islam also teaches us to be kind to disabled people in that sense.
Yes, definitely.
Okay, anyone else here? Your friend who are sick also. We talk about disabled people, but how about people who are sick? Huh? When they are sick, they are disabled, and we should be kind to them. If you have a friend, if you go back to the mahala, it's Allah, when everything's okay without COVID and so on. So when you have a friend who's sick, you have to be kind enough to help your friend, because disability is not just something that happens to disabled people; it can happen to able people as well. When you are disabled from doing something, like waking up and buying food and so on. You can buy for your friend. Don't complain too much. There is also a lot of pahala or reward for that, for helping your friend. Right? To be kind to others. The Prophet also, one, I think, because I'm not really a good Muslim in the sense that I don't remember very well all the hadiths, but you remember this Prophet also when a blind man wanted to see him, right? And he felt that the blind man wasn't important enough. He wanted at the same time to see somebody more important at that time, because they have two appointments. He had two appointments, and God chastised him for looking down on the blind man. Right? So even the Prophet sometimes have this problem, but he managed to overcome it, because he is after all sinless, and it's God's way of showing to us how we must treat disabled people like other people, uh, and even more, we help them. Okay. So anyone wants to say anything? Any questions so far? Would you be able to produce a video, for example? Yeah, I think um, Afia can produce one video that's related, maybe perhaps to you, with your brother, if you want to. If you don't want us to, it's okay. So can center on the problems faced by disabled people, and also you can do a sketch, for example. Also, can create a story around disability. Yeah, and actually, in Malaysian, I wanted to show this what do you call that, a Malaysian filmmaker. He made a cartoon show of disability of a child who had dyslexia. Okay, I think I'm not really sure what the child had, but the child couldn't. Yeah, I think the child was dyslexic. So the video won an award in France. So I will try to find the video. Maybe I can show it to you on WhatsApp. Anyone here has anything to say anymore?
I have a question.
Uh huh.
Uh, psychological disability, like mental illness, is considered as disability, right?
Yes.
So, uh, if like for works or literature that concerns with, psychopath and uh, generally psychopath,
Mm.
are they considered, as disabled
Uh,
literature as
yeah.
well?
Yeah, they are. I think psycho and social path are different, because they're not disabled by their condition. They have a different way of thinking. But people who have sarcopenia, um, they need because there's something wrong with their chemical construction and the chemical what kind of reaction in their body. That's why they have sarcopenia, and they cannot control their disability. They have to be given a certain drug, to control their what called that violent tendencies. So they actually have disability. Not the people who are psychopath or sociopath. Yeah. um, I think when we're talking about mental disability, it has something to do with your disability to do work because of some kind of biological reaction in your body. So that's one. Not strictly social or psychopath. There are people who are unable to do certain things, like sociopath. They cannot view, they cannot experience emotion, but it's okay as long as they don't do anything. But if with their thing, with their um, lacking of emotion, yeah. There are people like this in our society, even though they are sociopaths and psychopaths. If they don't do anything, they are not criminals. But some of the criminals have been found to have to be social and sociopath or psychopath. So uh, they're not they considered disabled, but psychophenia is disabled because they have. I know somebody who has psychophenia, who was the daughter of my driving instructor. And my driving instructor is an old man. He said that his daughter does not view, cannot live. His daughter cannot live without him because he said that his daughter is disabled, cacat, because she has to have drug injected into her body every 6 months or something like that. So he had to go to the doctor to manage her sarcopenia. His daughter has sarcopenia. So it's not like sociopath or psychopath. Anything you want to say? Anything else anyone wants to say? If they have any experience and so on, you want to share? Okay, no, nothing. Okay, so I'll see you on Thursday, and we kind of like will do a revision. Okay, and also need your blog and YouTube video. Okay, you can come up with videos on this if you want to. It's very, very. No, I hope you have already come up with the video, but if you haven't, you can work one on Google Meet and can discuss the problems that you have encountered, or with disabled people and so on. You can just have a panel. You can have a forum on disability, but it's run by able people, or maybe you can pretend to be disabled. You can do that also. Okay. So I'll see you on Thursday then. Okay. So goodbye. Thank you.
Thank you, Doctor.